to the show. And we've actually got a really interesting topic with Keith English from Keith English Real Estate and Associates. Can't forget the associates bit, or else Barb will be ringing me up and saying, you forgot about me. Oh, but Keith, real estate, I mean, it is a hot topic at the moment. We're in Australia, obviously, for our overseas listeners, but the properties have gone up, they've gone down, they're 1 minute apartments are the flavour of the month, and then there's houses. But at the core of it, the one thing I find myself that is stable is the agent. That tends to be like you either can trust your agent or you can't. And no matter what the market's doing, choosing a good agent has got to be number one.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing to choose, because most of the time selling your house or your property is the most valuable asset that you have. So why put that in the hands of someone who isn't an expert, or you don't feel that you do trust in that relationship?
I will say one thing, and look, I'm not an expert obviously in this field, I'm not a real estate agent, but I was listening to some experts out of the States, and they were saying you choose your agent before you start even thinking about who's going to give you the best price.
Yeah, well, to me it's a partnership. So if an agent comes in and they're trying to dictate all the terms, they're selling your property, so they're actually a servant to you. You're paying them, and they need to work with you in a partnership to sell your property.
When an agent comes in, and you've had lots of years of experience with this, and not just in real estate, I think that gives you a bit of an edge. That's why I think I like talking to you about real estate, because you've actually owned different businesses, you've been employed in fairly senior management roles in fairly large corporations. You've got this kind of holistic view and a realistic view of the world, if that was something I can say there. When you yourself, and you've sold properties, what do you think defines or gives the quality of a really good real estate agent?
I think it's trust, and funny enough, the reason why I got into real estate, because I was struggling to find the agent that I wanted to have. And so even before I got into real estate, I was actually selling my own properties, because it was something I was good at doing. But to find a good agent is someone who you trust and have faith in. So faith in that they're going to give you correct feedback, faith that they're going to be able to communicate with your buyers effectively, and I think most importantly is someone that the buyers are going to trust, because if the buyers trust them, then they will disclose a lot of information and some of their objections, and if you can't get the objections out of your buyers, then you can't overcome those objections. So, and then that trust comes back to me to say, okay, this is the genuine feedback that I'm getting.
It was interesting you say that, and a little bit off topic, I was talking to John Hughes, he's a major car dealer here in Perth, and he was saying the same thing. If the buyer doesn't trust you, they won't tell you what their concerns are. And he gave an example, something really simplistic. They were in the car, and he just couldn't work out what the problem was. They seemed to like the car. In the end, he said, look, just tell me what it is. If I can fix it, I can fix it. He said, well, we had a look at the spare tyre and it wasn't that good. And he's gone, I could have lost a sale. But because they trusted him, and he's a well-known car dealer here in Perth, so he's got a lot of trust. And I guess it's the same. You could be losing a buyer because of lack of trust. And it could be just minor things.
Well, sales training 101 is love your objections, because every objection brings you closer to a sale. So if you don't know and don't find out what the objections are, I mean, I've had people who haven't wanted to buy a house because they didn't like the kitchen bench top. They love the rest of the house, but to find a solution then, that's easy. We can get costings and pricings of replacing the bench tops, and that only might be $2,000 or $3,000, and we can work that out in the deal.
And I think that's one thing that comes through with your agency, is that you're more of a solutions-based agency. You're solutions-based for your client who you're representing to sell the house. But what I like is you're also solutions-based for the buyer. That must work really well for synergy.
Yeah, I think of more of myself as a facilitator. So not as a salesperson, but as someone who, there's two sides of the equation. If we can bring them together, we get a deal. If we can't bring them together, then there's no deal. So, so if you can create solutions, and sometimes that can be something completely left field. And that makes the difference, in being able to close the deal.
Yeah. One thing I did like with talking to you, and we were talking really, so we've talked a little bit off air, and your attitude to it, and you're saying, well, people selling want to move on to the next chapter of their life, and you're saying this is a great thrill to help people do that.
Yeah, it's, especially if it's their family home. That family home means so much to them, and often it's about letting go of that and treating that with respect. So selling the house is a very emotional decision, as is buying a house.
I was going to say it works on both sides of the coin there. And do you think because you couldn't find an agent at the time, so you end up selling your own, it gives you and the people who work with you a bit of a skill level of more, rather than sales skills, but more empathy skills, being empathetic in both sides?
Yeah, empathy, but also we also do need to remember that we are employed by the seller.
Right.
And so it's our duty to get the best possible result for the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And the best possible result is to obviously get the sale at the right price and the right conditions.
Yes.
And sometimes those conditions are more important than the actual price, so depending on the person's circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I was reflecting when you were just saying that. I remember one of my friends wanted to sell his house and he was building, but he didn't want to move into a rental. It was just going to cause a... Yeah. And the agent was fantastic. Yeah. He actually brought a buyer that didn't want to move in for 6 months, and they got... And you're saying the condition was more important than the price. And they took a little bit off the price as if it was paying rent. But he said it just saved all the pain.
Yeah, so it's I always talk with the sellers and go, what is your perfect scenario? Okay, and if we can create that, then that's ideal.
Right.
I've had literally people ring me on a Monday and say, if I don't get an offer on the table on this property by Wednesday, I go bankrupt.
Wow.
Okay, so it then becomes not about the price, it's about getting the property sold.
Yes.
So then there's certain people you can call, they might be bottom dwellers,
yeah,
that are there ready with cash, to pick up a bargain. Now, that's fire selling, but it solves my client's problem. Okay.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It is solving the problem so they can move on to the next chapter of their life.
Yeah.
When, as an agent, and I think you made a very good point there, you do work for the seller.
Yes.
So when I engage you, you're actually working on my behalf. It must be a challenge sometimes then for an agent, because you're obviously paid on commission.
Yes.
So when you're talking with an agent, is this one of the telltale signs when an agent starts to ask you, okay, what's your perfect scenario? These are types of questions you should be hearing from your agent rather than just what do you want to get for it?
Well, a lot of agents will come in and tell you what you might want to hear. And everyone wants to hear, I'll sell it quickly and I'll sell it for the highest price. And your property's worth $1 million.
In a house of 500,000.
Yeah. And we had this just recently where we appraised a property for $950. That's what all the sales evidence says. Another agent walked in and told them they get them 1.3 to 1.4.
Wow.
Okay. Now there's no evidence. Okay. So buyers have access to this evidence, so most buyers are pretty well educated these days. Yeah. So there's a lot of information out there. So the only difference is the agent. Okay. So if I can get in there and actually work with the buyers and negotiate and push them up in price, okay, so that's my job in negotiations. But if I'm telling someone, and there are a lot of agents out there who will, what we call buy the listing, they will say it's worth much more than it actually is. And then from about week 2, 3, all they're doing is trying to drop the price.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've got the listing, they've locked up their seller for 3-6 months, depending on the contracts, and then they just start to try and reduce the price.
Wow. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with more great information with Keith. He's from Keith English and Associates, great real estate agents, and some great advice for homeowners. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. to the show, and I'm in the studio with Keith English from Keith English and Associates Real Estate. How are you, Keith?
I'm fantastic, mate.
Right, I wanted to get you in because there's, as I said, the property market seems to go all over the place. We're in WA, in Western Australia, and but one thing that I've always been taught is the consistency of the actual agents. No matter what the market's doing, a really good agent can still help you achieve what you want to achieve by understanding it.
Yeah, and good agents can work in markets that are going up or sideways or downwards. So, and there's different tactics that we use depending on the type of market that we're in. Some people say we're in a tougher market. I don't know. I just think, normality is, I don't know what normal is anymore in the world, but it just seems to go up and down. But in a market that's perhaps not booming, let's say, we've had a mining boom over the last few years here and properties just walked out the door, agents saying I can't get enough stock of houses, but now we've kind of gone back to some kind of normality. Is it now more important for people to know how to prepare their homes, how to present them? What goes on here? Yeah, preparing your house is very important, and sort of there's preparing and there's presenting, which I'll probably talk about more. Preparing your house for sale.
Yeah.
And these are sort of some of the more major items. And some people renovate their house just before they go onto the market. I personally have a problem with that because it's like improving your house and not getting the benefit of living in it, and just to sell it so someone else can have the benefit of living in a nicer home. But you've got to be very careful because a lot of people spend money and they don't get a return for it. So, I knew someone who spent $70,000 landscaping the front area of their house to put it on the market, and they probably could have got away with $2,000 or $3,000 tidy up.
Wow!
So it wasn't necessary. It's the same as redoing the kitchen to sell the house.
Yes.
You could spend $40,000 renovating your kitchen, and is it going to get you $40,000 more?
And I suppose the thing, especially with kitchens, is that you don't actually know you're renovating it to the other person's taste.
Yeah.
And you made me laugh with the gardens because I spent a long time in my garden and pruned everything and got all these lovely plants, and the buyer didn't like gardens.
Absolutely.
And took it all out.
I knew someone who spent $20,000 renovating their swimming pool. The buyer bought it and filled the pool in. So it's...
We could have got a 50-50 on that deal. I'll take 10. I won't do the pool, and I'll take 10 grand off the house.
Absolutely.
I did see someone, I think it was in the eastern states, and the kitchen was a shocker, and in their own words. And they said, but if I renovate it, I don't know what you're going to like. So they went, look, I got a quote from a builder. That's the price to renovate, and these are the stone bench tops and all the bits and pieces. I'm happy to go you 50-50. You're going to get the benefit, but I'll go you 50-50 on the cost, and I'll take that off, and there's your new kitchen. And they sold the house, and the new buyer went, I'm glad you did that, because they moved a couple of walls as well.
Yeah, and it's all about, facilitating the sale. So, but a lot of people, like I know one agent, and we used to sell a lot in these apartment blocks. They weren't very old. Half the units were built with cream-coloured carpet, half were built with blue-coloured carpet.
Right.
She would make every single owner replace the blue carpet with cream-coloured carpet. It would cost about $5,000. And I got approached by one of the owners and saying, this is what my agent's asking me to do. And I said, well, what's wrong with blue carpet? So we listed the property and we actually sold it at a higher price than what the other agent had appraised it at. But it wasn't the problem with the unit, it was a problem with the agent.
Right.
Because the agent didn't like blue carpet. So she had a block and couldn't sell a property with blue carpet. Okay. So it's, if your agent's asking you to do things that don't seem quite right, then get a second or third or fourth opinion, because apartments do sell with blue carpet. Yeah.
So preparing your home for sale and getting it ready, what are some of the things that people can do that do actually have an impact for buyers?
And you look at doing it, if something's broken, fix it or replace it. Carpets are an interesting one because you might replace it with something that the new buyer doesn't want. But if it's obviously worn out and detracting from your property, then I suggest that we maybe look at replacing it.
Yeah.
If one room is more heavily worn than other rooms, then try and replace that with a matching carpet as well.
Yeah.
Fresh paint is good, or at least clean.
Yes.
Tidy up your gardens, make sure the lawns are mowed and edged and mulched and weeded, so nicely presented. Yeah.
When you're talking about paint, and I guess we've all seen the renovator shelves and some of the crazy wallpapers, and I'm kind of going, if I was renovating my home for sale, I might keep it a little bit neutral. Seems to be
Neutral colours. Try and avoid doing way out feature walls because look at your colour here, and that was big in the 90s, sort of that colour.
It won't be there when the film editing is done.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a green screen he's got behind him, but of course you can't see it.
Sorry.
No.
So avoid doing anything that might upset a buyer. So keep it as neutral as possible. The first house I bought with my wife, we walked in and it was pink and grey, and it was like Ken and Barbie's house. And there was two beautiful people, lovely blonde-haired wife and a husband, two little kids and a little white dog. Everything was like Ken and Barbie's house, we used to call it. My wife walked in and walked out. She said, I can't buy that house. Okay. So, because I'm sort of understand real estate, and I said, forget about the colours. Okay, forget about this. So they had literally pink pelmets, pink walls, pink and smoky grey carpets. Yeah. So with that, if they had have painted and made it a little bit more neutral, then they would have got a lot more competition for buyers. So the other thing with this is a lot of people say take away all your personal items and personal photos.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I don't agree with it because if you're selling a family home and it looks like a family home, people can, and this is part of my job as well, they can envisage their family there and their family photos up on the wall. Yeah. But what I do tell people, I sold a house that was, it was a very gothic theme. And there were skulls and athamas and knives and all this sort of stuff through the whole house. So I said, we need to take that out. Now, the same would be said if someone had religious crosses and crucifixes and Jesus, all that through the house as well. So you minimise it as much as possible. Now, this particular house, he'd been on the market for 2 years with another agent. Wow. His other agent didn't have the confidence to actually ask him to do this. Right. Now, we took all these elements out and we sold the house in 2 weeks, okay, after it had been on the market for a long time. Now, the buyers had a much more pleasant feeling walking through, and they weren't put off by the styling of the house.
And so when you go, when your agent comes in, you really do want an agent that's got the confidence to challenge some of the things. They may not be what you want to hear, but at the end of the game, you want to sell your house, and you want the right kind of person who's going to say, look, to sell it, we just need to neutralise it a little bit.
Yeah, and also, it is someone's house, and I'll offer my advice, and some people will take that advice, and sometimes they won't, but I still won't stop you selling the house. Yeah. It can just add extra challenges to it, and every time you do something that alienates a buyer, they could be the one that would have paid the best price. So,
one thing I did see that someone had done, and they'd actually, I think they were planning on doing it anyway, but just decided they were going to sell them. They got like the upstairs, it was a single-storey dwelling, and they got the drawings done and got planning approval, and they had it all done, all costed, and they went, we could do it and try and sell the house, and maybe, as you said, get more money, but then sometimes that doesn't quite work out.
No.
And their agent was a bit like you and went, whoa, hold on. Why don't we just put the plans on the table? Why don't we let the buyers make a choice? And now they've got more options. But if you do it, I don't. And he was quite honest. He said, I don't think you'll recoup the benefit.
Yeah, and very rarely do you do that. Is where you get the benefit of it. I sold a house in Padbury that was a lovely A-frame house with a double garage, and it was my house, and I had plans to build across the top of the garage, and you could actually see the ocean from there, so you could watch the sunset. So I sold that picture.
Yes.
And so the guy was going, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. 15 years later, he still hasn't done it. Okay. But it was there in the dream and possible.
Yeah.
So it's about creating that picture for someone who could do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll take a break and we'll come back with more with Keith English from Keith English and Associates on getting your house and getting the right agent to sell it for you, and some of the tips and tricks, the inside knowledge for how you can get the best possible conditions, I suppose, not just the price, but the conditions you want it sold under.
Definitely.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, and I'm with Keith English from Keith English Real Estate. And Keith, we've been talking about we've been covering off some of the points of selecting an agent, and we're talking off air because we've been talking about it from the buyer's perspective. But even though you work for the buyer, it's up to you. Very, very important you can understand customers' needs as well. And we're talking about presentation, and you raised an interesting point. We're just a bit off camera. And different buyers' expectations, like a buyer that comes in and says, look, Keith, I really want to buy a house, I can renovate.
Yeah. So, we were discussing a property that was really nicely presented, and he said, I don't want to buy this one because I want something that I can renovate. Okay, so the only real flaw in the house was it had quite a dated benchtop. So I dragged him into the kitchen. And I said, imagine what this will look like with a granite benchtop on there, and what's your favourite granite? And he told me he liked the black with the golden fleck, and we could put some downlights above the kitchen so it reflects really nicely. Yeah. And then a little light bulb went off, and he says, well, then I won't have to do the rest of the house. Okay. So he could put his stamp on the property, which is what he wanted to do. He wanted to get a house and put his feel into it. So he could go in there, you could spend $5,000-$6,000 putting a new bench top on there, and then save the rest of his weekends for enjoying the house instead of having to renovate it. And he bought the property there and then.
Do you find, and when you're presenting properties, obviously you have to find from the buyers. There must be some buyers that probably just want to walk in and do zero. Yeah. Do you find that they're the majority, or do you find there's kind of 50-50, or more people like to have something they can just put their bit of a stamp on?
Yeah, it's a combination of all three. Yeah. I mean, when I go looking for a house, I like ugly because you can buy ugly cheaper. Okay. So and I know how you can fix it. So that's me as a
typical real estate agent. I'll profiteer off ugly here.
Yeah, well, and whereas some people, and that's probably more of the savvy buyer. Some people want to walk in and it be nicely presented. Yeah. But I think above everything, you ugly is one thing, but dirty is another. So So you want to buy stuff that's clean. So when you're selling a house, it's very important to keep it clean, neat and tidy. And there's a few things that people can do without doing renovations and without spending a lot of money, is to present their house a little bit better. Yeah. So. And there's a lot of shows on TV at the moment about styling and presenting your home, and they have unlimited budgets, it seems.
I know.
But
they don't cost very much, according to the TV. I've looked at some of the prices and gone, I can't get it for that price.
Yeah. But basic things, like decluttering. So I would prefer to see things taken out of the house and stored in the garage during the sale process, even though might clog up the garage, or better still, borrow a family member's friend's a shed or garage that you can put stuff in there. So declutter it and make it a bit more minimalist, so people can walk in and have a sense of space. Okay. So the other thing is clean. Make sure the bathrooms are clean, toilets are clean. I sold a house down in the southern suburbs that it had been empty a very long time. So it had been empty for about 6 months when I got the job to sell it. And one of the toilets was disgusting. That's the only word I could put for it. And so I kept flushing the toilets and keeping it, trying to clean. I put air fresheners through and scented candles and did all this stuff. And then after 3 weeks, I thought, I'm going to have to clean the toilet.
Yeah.
And so I got all my cleaning gear, I went down and cleaned the toilet, and it sold that day.
Wow.
So my wife complained. She said she never cleaned the toilets. I said, I don't get paid that much to clean the toilet.
There is, you mentioned the TV shows, and look, there's quite a few on there at the moment. And we're talking about, preparing your home and then presenting it. And I see a few of them are saying, look, we'll take all your stuff out and we get these professional is it staging?
Staging, yeah.
And they hire the furniture and pop it in.
Yeah, it's depending on the furniture in the house. I'm bringing on a property shortly that will be staged.
Okay.
And that's because it's vacant. There's no furniture in there.
Uh-huh.
So that makes a big difference on some occasions.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but one person told me, and you might be sure it's true, if a house is vacant of all your furniture, people have difficulty envisaging what it would look like with furniture in it.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll say, my couch would never fit here. But if there's a couch in there, they can actually see the space of it as well. So,
right.
And you can stage homes relatively cheaply these days. So,
okay.
And there's a number of companies out there doing it. Yeah.
So if it's a vacant home, staging can actually work for you.
It's also depending on the sellers as well, because it is an expense. I'll still, a good agent will still sell the property. And that's part of the job. You sell the dream and you sell the vision of them living in the house.
Yeah. So
it'll never be an obstacle, but if it's within someone's capacity to stage a home, I'd always have, between myself and some friends of ours, we'd have enough furniture that we could go stage homes that we were selling ourselves.
Yes.
So we would go do that, or we want a new couch for home, so we would buy a new couch and stage the property, and then we'd take that one for home. So. But even if you're not going and fully staging a house with furniture, you can still, if it's got your furniture in there, you can still, get nice cushions. You can make sure the beds are nice, declutter the houses, get all your medicines off the kitchen benches and get them away, so just declutter, make it minimalised, make it clean, make it neat. No one wants to know if you've got some unusual books that you want, have them on display, or if they're not appropriate, take them off.
Yeah.
So things that aren't going to upset people, but an interesting, some interesting authors that, sometimes people will look at the books that you read.
Okay.
And get a picture of the feel of the house by doing that as well. Yeah.
Is there, when you're presenting a house, are there any, I've heard the stories, always have a coffee pot on and, bake some cookies in the oven. Keith's laughing. You can drop you off some cookie dough mix, you can pop them in the oven.
It's funny because some people will walk in and go, oh yeah, they're doing the old coffee pot trick. Buyers are aware of that. But I bought a house myself and I fell in love with this house. And it was an old Dutch couple in an A-frame wood house. And there was fruit trees out the back, and they made their own jams, and so all this stuff was out there. And they had a fresh pot of jam cooking on the stove, and it just smelled beautiful. So those things, it was a natural part of their life. There's a difference between doing something and making it look fake and as an attempt, or just to have it. But freshly brewed coffee is something that if it's natural, it can happen. Yeah. Nice smelling candles, if they're overpowering, it's not good. But it's just something that's nice and presented. So those are all the things that you can do with the property.
Yeah. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back because I think what I want to do is cover off with Keith some of the do not do this. And then we'll just do a quick wrap up of today's show, which has been absolutely fascinating. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Back, and we're with Keith English from Keith English and Associates, and we're discovering a little bit about choosing agents to sell your property and good advice on getting your property ready for sale and presenting it. But I guess choosing the agent, and we're getting to the end of the show, and I just wanted to recap, because we talked about all the good things that you look for in an agent, but there must be some warning bells that if an agent walks in that the average buyer may not be as savvy, because we're not in your industry, but maybe some warning bells that you would go, oh, this would perhaps get me a little bit...
Probably the main warning bell is someone who comes in and praises your property but doesn't back it up with evidence or reasoning. So if there's 5 other properties that are similar to yours that are sold within this price range, why would yours be worth $100,000 more?
Yes.
So, and sometimes some properties won't. I remember selling a property in Embleton, and it was quite unique a property, and I actually went to the people and said, this is where the sales evidence sits, but I believe we will get here. Okay, and there was no sales evidence to show that, but I gave a reasoning because it was a beautifully renovated 3x1 that had been converted into a 3x2, had a double lock-up carriage, and it was very highly elevated.
Yes.
And there was nothing quite like it on the market, so there was reason why. And we actually sold that very quickly, and we sort of all the sales evidence was saying around the 500, low 500s. We put it on from 599.
Yes.
And we sold it on the first night for 640.
Wow.
Okay. So that backed up my argument. Now, sometimes you can say, well, the sales evidence is here, but the owner wants to try higher.
Yes.
So my advice to them is to say, let's test the market out, but let's look at adjusting our price back in the first couple of weeks. So going back to what look out for is someone who can't support their argument for the price that they're giving you.
So that agent, and I think you used the phrase before, buys the listing.
Yeah.
And I guess we've all met them.
Yeah, so they tell you what you want to hear, and it's called buying the listing in the industry, you know, where it's an unrealistic price, but it makes sure that the agent gets the listing.
Yeah.
So be careful of those agents. The other thing also is one that isn't the cheapest. Don't always go for the cheapest commission, and because often you do get what you pay for, and you might save a couple of $1,000 or so on the commission prices, but that is a massive difference when it comes to the negotiating stage. A good agent could negotiate it, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. More than an average agent.
Yes.
So a little bit of saving at the start could cost you lots more at the end.
At the end, okay. Yeah.
And the other thing too, as I wanted to discuss, was don't necessarily always just go for a local agent because they're a local agent.
I was going to say, because I probably grew up in that era, with Dad, and so you always buy local, you shop local, you buy, and then you got into that phrase of just, I'll just choose the local agent from down, not with a local shopping centre that's got the agencies there.
Well, in the old days in real estate, you would drive to your real estate agent and he would hop you in the car and he would drive you around to his properties.
Yeah.
And that was a real local agent. And that was the only way you would know what properties were on the market. Now we're in the days of internet. The buyers don't care where your agent is. Okay?
No.
And more importantly, they don't even look where your agent is. So if you're choosing an agent, have a look. Don't just necessarily go for a local agent. Go for a recommended agent that you can go from family and friends.
Yep.
And I've sold in 105 plus suburbs of Perth.
Wow.
Okay. Most agents will sell in 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'll often get referred to people who've had trouble selling. So I might go through 1 agent, 2, 3, sometimes 4 agents. And they've all been local agents. Don't get me wrong, there are some very good local agents.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes you get into a trap of, I've seen where they don't believe, I had one agent tell me, 4x2s in this suburb, they're worth $375,000. Okay.
Right.
All right, so that's their ceiling, that's their limit. Okay, and I said, well, and that's when I sold a property once with an agent, and they sold 375. That's what you'll get for, and we got 399. Okay,
Big difference.
Yeah, local agent was predetermined set in their price range.
Does it, just on the local agent thing, is it being brought about more because you've got your own, you're independent, but is the franchisee model for real estate agents kind of capped them into areas?
I don't believe so.
Right.
I think it's more of a seller mentality to say, well, you have to get a local agent because they know the area and they'll have buyers just waiting. But with the day of internet access, everything is online. If you're not online, then you're not on the market. So
it reminds me of that phrase where we had a property on the beach and the person next door said, yeah, you're either on the beach or you're not.
Yeah.
So
with internet searching, they don't even look at where the agent's from. So.
No, I must admit, when I've done internet searching on properties, I kind of look at and we bought it, just up by the ocean, and I didn't even look where the agent was.
Yeah.
I had to drive around, and when I liked that block, the agent's number was on there. I never even asked if it was local or anything. I'm the buyer. Yeah. I just want that. So
I went into a suburb where I've never sold before. Sold it in 12 hours for a record price for the suburb. Okay.
Wow.
So that I'm not a local agent. I've never been to that suburb before, but I can do all my research and I can, apply a fresh set of eyes to the suburb. So that example, it can be repeated across a number of suburbs.
And I must admit, the agents that I've met, and there's lots and lots of good agents, they do not confine themselves just to that local area anymore. They're like you. They go, we're really good at what we do.
Well, I go where I'm needed,
Yeah.
So
it's exactly right.
I literally was speaking to someone this morning, and they said, this agent, they're not interested in listing properties anywhere outside of Fremantle.
Wow.
And I'm going, well, why not? So I actually like that challenge of going into a suburb and selling something. I've sold, I think we talked about this off air once before as well, in Mount Lawley, a very prestigious suburb.
Beautiful spot.
And one of the major local agents there not only told the sellers, but told the eventual buyers that the house was only worth 2.1 million. Okay, and we sold it for 2.75. Okay, so it's a big difference.
Massive.
Okay, and that was because that agent had a preset vision of what properties were worth in that suburb.
Yeah. Now, we talked about this before, and I am conscious of your time, Keith, but we've talked about what to look at for agents. Now, preparing your property. One thing I do want to touch on that just popped into my head there, just really quickly. I'm starting to see more and more adverts advertising, sell the house yourself, and it'll only cost you X. And I'm thinking, yeah, I could do the will myself, but I don't. I still get my lawyer to do it because I know if I do it myself, it may not be wrong. And if you don't have a proper will, well, the government decides what's happening. These do-it-yourself selling, if you're not, you've got experience of real estate, so you'll find selling your stuff. Are they all they cracked up to be, or there is some things people just need to be aware of if they're going to go down that path?
Yeah, they need to be very wary on what they're getting because there still is a fee to use these. So be very wary on what you get. And there's a couple of different ones around at the moment, but if you're responsible for selling the property, or is someone else going to do it for low cost or no commissions, you work out how they get paid and what is their motivation for actually selling your house. Okay. To me, there's nothing more motivating than to sitting in a house with no one coming through and the home open. Okay, so I'm sitting there going, okay, how can I create more people to come through this property?
Yes.
I find it's one of the most motivating things because I don't like wasting my time.
No.
So if I'm sitting there and no one's coming through, then I'm actually literally devising ways of how can I get more people to come through this property.
Yeah.
So in a booming market, it's quite easy to sell, but in a booming market, you need to take advantage of that and actually get the most out of the sale as well. So if you're either doing it yourself or having one of these other cheap organisations to do it, are you guaranteed that that's going to happen? Okay, I only get paid on successful sale of a property. My job is to do such a good job and get such a good price that that person will then use me again and refer me to their friends.
Yeah.
So that's my motivation, to get the best each time. And plus, I'm a service-based person as well.
Yeah. There is a thing, and we're saying, and I think your biggest takeaway, because I am conscious of your time, I do appreciate you spending the time with us, but your biggest takeaway, before someone actually starts doing any of the stuff we've talked about, what is the thing you've learned? You say, this is my number one, I'll pass it on to you.
I think start talking to you agents and potential agents before you start doing things to your house.
Right.
I come along sometimes and people have already done stuff and you go, well, probably I didn't need to do that. Okay. So it also gives you time to build a relationship with your client. I've got a client at the moment, we're about to hit the market, and we've been talking for 13 months.
Wow.
Okay. So, that shows to her that I'm still interested in her as a person. I keep my follow-ups and we keep in communication, and I'm not just there to earn the money from selling a house.
Yeah.
I'm building a relationship. Okay.
Fantastic.
So, and we've talked about doing things to the house so she can get those things done. If she was waiting till she was ready to go on the market, there was a lot of things she would have done that weren't necessary to do, and she might not have done some of the things that we've talked about to get ready.
I think that's great advice. Someone watching now wants to put their property on the market, Keith. What's the best way of contacting yourself?
You can call me on my mobile, 0433 005 042, or Keith at keithenglishrealestate.com.au.
And the website address is?
keithenglishandassociates.com.au.
Fantastic. It's been great having you in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
All right, thank you, Mike.